This is Make It Then Tell Everybody. I'm Dan Berry and I'm asking you the big question: what are bleeds and what are they for? This is a question that I seem to get asked an awful lot. So what are bleeds and why does everybody go on about them all the time? So what I wanted to do was to explain how this works and how you can make it work for you. The thing we need to remember when we're making a book is that bleeds are an extra little bit of artwork that goes around the edges, usually by about 3mm, but ask your printer in case it's slightly different. This will get chopped off, which is a kind of bit annoying, because you think, well, I've just done this artwork, I've made extra, and now it's just been thrown into the trash. That's annoying, and I hate it, but that's it. What we need to figure out is, why is that? What's the point of adding something that we're going to then take away at the end of the day? And it's a really, really good question. When someone first explained it to me, I didn't understand it. I couldn't visualize it. I didn't get it. And the way I learned to do it was by getting it wrong over and over again until I started getting it right. And now it's become second nature and it's just a thing you do. What I want to do is to show you how to do it properly by making a bad book. I want to make some deliberate mistakes and get it wrong before we get it right. But then you should be able to see the stakes, like what goes wrong and why we can make it better. Here's some dumb things to remember. First one is really, really simple. Books are made of paper. Machines aren't magic and things will go wrong. They absolutely will. That's just the way it is, that's life. However, if we do this properly, then nobody's going to notice how wrong we actually got it. What I'm going to be doing is working in Adobe InDesign, but the same settings are available in things like Affinity Publisher if you want to get out of that subscription model. So here we go, let's jump into InDesign. So here we go, I'm going to open up a new document. And in your normal dialog box, you've got the dimensions. I'm going to add 200mm by 200mm, working millimeters because we're in the UK. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll be able to see the bleeds and slug. Ignore the slug for now. Set the bleed to 3. And you can see the preview in the background. Well, let's give it some pages as well. Let's give it 12 pages. So we've actually got an actual book. And there we go. We've got some pages. There they are. And if we zoom right in on one of these corners here, you'll see that we got this extra red line around the outside. If I can get it to hold still, there it is. We've got this extra red line. So the big question is, what does this actually mean, Dan? This is very confusing. Let's have a quick look at what all these lines actually mean. So the white bit here, you guessed it, is the page. Your artwork goes on there. If your artwork goes off the page, it's a blank piece of paper. So let's keep it on the page. This kind of magenta line, this is the margin. This doesn't print. Basically, all of the important stuff goes inside the margins. It also gives you a handy sort of thumb space at the edge of the page to actually hold the book. It gives you room down the center spread of the page as well, which we call the gutter. So the important things, they might get lost down in the gutter. Now this red line down at the bottom there, down at the edges, off the edge of the page, this is the bleed line. So if, this is a big if you have artwork that goes to the edge of the page, it needs to touch this red line. Let's have a little look at an example. I'm going to dump in a, oh gosh, that's a beautiful piece of artwork. Let's dump it and let's center align it on the page. And then again, let's zoom in on a corner. You can see that the artwork is going beyond the edge of the page. It's actually going beyond the edge of the bleed there as well. So all the bits beyond the edge of the page, they're kind of sacrificial. We can get rid of those if we need to. If I make an image that's exactly the same size as the page, let's have a look at that. So we've got a 200mm by 200mm document. So that one was slightly larger, 208 I think. So this one is exactly the same size as the page. So you'd think it's exactly the same size as the page, it's exactly, perfect. When it prints, it will be perfect. But you can see that it only goes up to the very, very edge of the page, which will give us no bleed. The problem with that is that when we come to trim it, which I'll show you later, if it moves even ever so slightly, like 1/2 millimeter up or 1/2 millimeter down, it's got nowhere to expand up or down into or side to side as well. So the risk is that we end up with these little white lines where we're chopping through blank paper rather than artwork. So what I've done is I've made a book. I've put it together in InDesign, and I've added some things that will go wrong. Here's our front page. It has bleed. I've added a bit of typography there. It's beautiful. So you can see it goes beyond the edge of the page, goes beyond the bleed as well. It has bleed. The next page is the other page we did. It does not have bleed. This is a spread, and we're going to be saddle stitching this book, which is French for stapled. Neither of those pages have bleed. This one does have bleed, but I wanted to demonstrate margins as well. So if we have a little look in the margins there, we've got text that goes right up to the edge of the page, whereas on the facing page we're well within the margins. Let's keep going. To try and exaggerate some of the ideas of the margin, I've put a 5mm border around this page. It's going to be close enough to the edge of the page that we'll probably be able to see if there's any skew at all. I've added some text within the margins, and on the opposite, oh no, here we go. On this page we have text that I did in Photoshop and dumped in, and text that was done in InDesign. So we've got one, if we zoom right in on it, that is made up of the raster Lego bricks, and then if we manage to control InDesign in a way that doesn't make everyone motion sick, we've got the text that was put together in InDesign or Illustrator, where you can see it's there as this beautiful crisp vector, and the printer's going to love that. On the other page we've got a slightly bigger margin, a little border around the edge, so if we do print it with a tiny bit of skew it should be okay. I've done a little test here, so I've got an RGB image and a CMYK image, and I'm going to see what happens when I print them. Received Wisdom said that the CMYK image will be better than the RGB. Let's find out. And I've got three different kinds of blacks. I've got a black that is just 100% K, that black, a 40/40 0 100 rich black there, and then a 100 100 100 everything turned up to 11 black there as well. Let's see how they print. Here's two pages of the same comic, one that's well within the margins there, and the other one that is not within the margins at all. It's going to be kissing the edge there. And then we've got a back cover that has bleed. Oh la la, what a treat. So now we've got this book. What I've done is I printed it. I've got a big printer in my garage. Then I'm going to, by the magic of editing, I'm going to fold it, I'm going to staple it, I'm going to trim it, and then we're going to have a good look at it and see what's actually going wrong here. Okay, so here's the book. Here it is. I did my best job of trying to make it good. I promise, I promise, I promise. So we have the cover here. It has bleed, and we can see that the artwork goes all the way to the edges. That's pretty cool. And the back cover, we know, because it says so, it also has bleed. And we can see that that also goes all the way to the edges, apart from the bits where it doesn't, where it's not supposed to. So let's have a look inside. So the first page should have no bleed. So what we have on this page is, and then you can see that there's a white stripe running along the top there, and it's a bit more noticeable down here, a white stripe where it's been misaligned. So although I tried to get it as close as damn it to the actual edge of the page, because the artwork doesn't go beyond it, I'm cutting straight through paper, not through artwork. And the same, even more pronounced on this page here. If I just hold my hand underneath it there, you can see that that's a good 2 or 3 millimeters there running down the side, and it looks gross, and I hate it. I hate it so much. So if it's correct at the bottom with no bleed, it's more than likely to be incorrect at the top, and you can see there's a white stripe running along the top there. So there's that. These margins here, that is way, way, way too far close to the edge of the page there. Any extra wiggle in the trim and we're going to lose bits of text there, so that's kind of a bad look. This one, however, it's a little bit further away. We've got room for a thumb to hold the book, and also if it's skewed, it's so far away we can't really tell, but we're also not going to chop off any of that beautiful text. We can start to see on this page here with the border around it up here particularly, even though that's supposed to be equal, it absolutely isn't. That's much wider than that. That's gross looking, which means that that one doesn't look too bad actually. And then down in the gutter here, it's difficult to tell. However, because this is one sheet of paper, you can see there, this will be as skewed as the other page there, but you can't really tell because it's further away from the edge, so you've got no real context for it. The RGB versus the CMYK image. I was really interested to see how this would come out, and I can see that this here is coming out way darker than I wanted it to. If you compare that to the cover there, much better. That's a CMYK image. and that one's an RGB image. So although we've got some nice saturation in the sky there, that isn't what was in the file that I wanted to print. We're also, anything darker is getting much darker, which is a pain. In the CMYK, the different versions of black here, the black doesn't look great for big blocks of black. I can see it's gone a little bit patchy, but it seems fine. The rich black here looks nice and rich, and then the 100 madness turned up to 11 version of it. It is also rich, but it's also largely indistinguishable between those two. It's maybe slightly less magenta-ish, slightly. So I think we're just wasting ink by adding that extra Y in there. The margins on this page of comics here, nice and neat. All around there, we've got room in the gutter. The gutter is the bit that runs down the middle of the book here. We don't want things to disappear into there because, again, it might get trimmed, it might shift as it gets bound. So we've got nice margins all the way around. I've got somewhere to hold the page without getting in my own way. And on this side, I don't know about you, but I don't like it when it goes too close to the edge of the page. Again, you get to see how wonky it actually is because you've got that context of the artwork and the hard border at the edge of the page there. Plus, I worry about things disappearing into the gutter. We might lose some key details there. And then on the back cover there, just to finish up, it does have bleed. Look, it goes right over the edge of the page. It's lovely. I love it. So there we go. We made a book, we made some mistakes. Make sure your artwork goes beyond the edge of the page so that we don't end up with these nasty white stripes running down there, which kind of automatically make you look a little unprofessional. So like I said, just use bleeds. Just use them. Why wouldn't you use them? So there we go. That's what bleeds are, that's what they're for, and that's how to use them, and those are the stakes if you get it wrong. Your book will look a little bit grubby, and people won't like it as much. So let's work in a way that people can't see all of our flaws and vulnerabilities. That would be great. Thanks very much for watching. I'm Dan Berry. This is Make It Then. Tell everybody.